Hey, Tyler with Terradice here, and a quick question for you. Which of these is poison ivy? Now, if your heart just sank when I asked you that question, then you surely have dealt with that poison ivy rash before. And it's no joke. In fact, if either of these were actually poison ivy, I'd be in for a long few weeks. Now, if I didn't know any better, I'd say that I could catch the poison ivy rash just by thinking about the plant. They say leaves of three, leave it be. And that is a perfect phrase to remember for anybody that's familiar with the rash, but not so familiar with the plant itself. So I've got two plants here that seemingly have three leaves, but are completely harmless. We've got the box elder, part of the maple family, and a slippery elm here. And now both of these plants thrive in similar conditions to poison ivy, and at some moment in their life may resemble poison ivy quite a bit. Identification can be tough. Let's take a closer look. So we know that there are many varieties of poison ivy that exist, and they come in all sorts of shapes and sizes. They could be ground cover, they could be climbing vines, they could be shrubs, and they grow in a variety of conditions and soils. And speaking of soil, there may be more poison ivy around than you think. Poison ivy can form a rhizome, which is a horizontal stem which grows underneath the soil. And that horizontal stem, anywhere it sees fit, can shoot up another portion of the plant. That includes anywhere new sunlight might be heating the soil. Poison ivy is a flowering plant native to North America, and we usually recognize it by these three leaves, the sizable leaf in the center and two leaves on either side that kind of look like mittens. They've got thumbs coming off of them. What's interesting to note is that what we call three leaves is actually one leaf. It's a compound leaf. That is a network forming one whole leaf. These leaflets can reach up to 5 inches in length and are light to dark green in the spring and summer, simmering down into a beautiful red foliage in the fall, with very few, if any, teeth along the margin of the leaf. These leaflets are also known to have a sheen or a shine to them. And this is what we call urushiol. It's an organic compound that coats pretty much the entire body of this plant. This urushiol is pretty typical of the family Anacardiaceae, which includes pistachios and cashews, actually. More specifically for poison ivy, we're going to talk about the genus Toxicodendron, which also includes poison oak and poison sumac. Here's a good time to note that poison ivy is pretty much found across all of North America, while poison sumac is just found in the eastern portion of the United States. Poison oak is a plant that grows on the west coast and the southern portion of the United States, and actually the border of Ohio is the northernmost range for poison oak. And of course, plants don't adhere to state lines, but you're really not likely to be seeing poison oak in Ohio. Most often, when folks think that they have found poison oak, it's something called Virginia creeper, which is also a vining plant, but a lot less formidable. Now, back to poison ivy. When most of us come in contact with this plant, we develop a rash called urushiol-induced contact dermatitis. That's a medical term. And what that is basically an allergic reaction when those oils start binding themselves with your skin cells. Your body basically then starts attacking itself, and that's where you get the red, itchy rash and those blisters. The best course of action to take if you think you've come in contact with urushiol is to scrub that area of the body really, really well with soap and water. The best comparison I've ever heard was it's kind of like trying to wash motor oil, invisible motor oil, off of your hands, off of your skin. It just takes persistence. The good news is, even if you develop the rash, if you have scrubbed and gotten all of that oil off of your skin, there's no chance of spreading the rash even further. It's not contagious like a lot of us seem to believe. Now, the best thing to do is to prevent. Know your allergies and how to avoid them. Wear long pants and closed toed shoes while out on an outing. When you get back, go ahead and wash those clothes in a deep, heavy, hot wash and have some calamine lotion on hand, just in case. Now, all of that being said, is poison ivy a good plant or a bad plant? While poison ivy is easy to demonize and it certainly doesn't have the best reputation, I feel categorizing plants into good and bad is kind of lazy. Given the opportunity, plants will grow and reproduce. That's just what they do. And there are certainly invasive plants that cause a lot of damage and should be eradicated if not growing in their native range. That's clear. Poison ivy is native. As far as we can tell, it's been established here well before European settlement. And as stated before, it's a flowering plant, so it produces a fruit, a tiny little berry. And plenty of our native fauna, wild animals, seek out and consume these berries for nutrition. And these animals, when they come in to consume these berries, they're not affected by the urushiol. Because you see, the urushiol, it is not a defense mechanism as much as it's an adaptation to help that plant retain water by coating its leaves and stem in an oil. Another thing to keep in mind is that we see a lot more poison ivy today than we ever have in the past. And that's due to us. That's anthropogenic, caused by humans. The more trees we take down, the more sunlight beats on the ground, the more opportunity poison ivy has to arrive. The more edge lining we do, the more poison ivy we're going to have. All that being said, I want to encourage you to go out and respect this native plant from a distance, of course. And as always, take care.